obviously we'll break the fight down closer to the time, but right now we both accept it's his biggest challenge by a mile. And you've interviewed KSI a lot, and KSI is building to a fight against Jake Paul. What the fuck does that do? This fight, it all of a sudden, just when we feel like, all right, KSI's back, he's catching Jake up, Jake then goes and does something like this, and I mean, like, what do you think JJ is thinking looking at this fight being announced after he's just had all of that flack for something where, I mean, JJ didn't get flack personally, but the event got criticised for the level of opponents he was fighting, where he's fighting guys who look like they literally haven't put a pair of gloves on before, by the looks of it. And then Jake Paul's getting in there with Anderson fucking Silva. What's going through JJ's mind, in your opinion?
It's tough for JJ because he I know is actively trying, like you said, to get to Jake. And, you know, I had a discussion with my boy Sensei on our podcast about this. Like, we were talking about the draws, like, who's the biggest draw? And he made such a good point to me. He was like, the biggest draw that KSI is going to have is Jake, you know, and Jake is now looking to go to Conor McGregor and Anderson Silva, and he's just boom, 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 up in the level. That's
because of what Jake's achieved rather than his actual, like celebrity power. Jake has sort of gone beyond and is now being taken more seriously as an actual fighter.
As a boxer, right? Yeah. So For JJ, you got to look at this and say, you know, I think he's looking at it and saying what we're saying, like, damn, respect, you know, okay, he's going out and doing that. If you're JJ, there's a time frame here that you have to do this, in my opinion, you know?
Yeah. All of a sudden, do you think that window's got a little tighter?
Yeah, the longer it goes and the longer we'll see, though, like, Jake still has to win fights. So he goes out there and gets smoked by Anderson, and the whole thing opens up again, you know? But the longer this goes and the longer Jake continues to up the levels and win, that fight becomes, you know, further and further apart, because then JJ has to almost replicate what Jake's doing in a different way, you know? Well, like, he has to get there. I think,
sorry to interrupt you, I think he can, it's a bit like the Joshua Fury scenario in that people will always want to see it.
Yeah.
But we're now going into that fight just thinking, well, Fury probably, you know what I mean? Like, and we might be in a similar scenario where if, let's say, JJ fights Slim and Jake Paul fights Anderson, and these are all big ifs in terms of what happens in those fights, but let's just say, for example, if Jake Paul sleeps Anderson Silva and JJ goes to a decision and wins the decision against Slim, people immediately are just going to be like, well, this ain't we're not on a level here where we can actually buy into this as a competitive fight. That's the issue.
Yeah, no, I think that regardless of what you look for if you're just wanting to see Jake fight KSI, then that fight, like you said, it'll always be there. Yeah. But if you want to look at it as the biggest fight we can make in YouTube boxing, we have to see competition. And for us to see that, JJ is going to have to make up ground quickly. Now, I know, and we know through Misfits, they're going to have a ton of events in the next year. Yeah. But that level has to start with Slim or with whoever they're going to fight next, and it has to be congruently like escalating fight after fight. And for Jake to be as active as he is, it's just hard to see unless Jake has a stumbling block, which, I mean, obviously Anderson is that stumbling block.
I mean, Anderson could well fucking be that guy to go, back to YouTube boxing for you, pal.
Yeah, like that. We're acting like it's a foregone thing, like, oh, Jake's just going to keep going. No, like, he's taken super tough fights, and Anderson could derail this whole thing.
Absolutely.
So KSI, Jake, I like you said, I think we have to see it as competitive, and the more that KSI gets in there and shows more ring time, I think we can get a better idea as to what that competitive level will be. But as of right now, it looks like we're still a ways off.
Yeah, I just think by Jake even taking this fight, it makes it look that way. But then, like you say, if Silva plays with him and it's not competitive in any way, then all of a sudden JJ is making videos laughing and oh, you got schooled. Yeah, back to YouTube boxing for you, pal. Come back to me. We'll have an actual fight, because that wasn't. You know what I mean? I can see how it could go either way, and you can see that. Depending on how Jake does, the road is either going to be like Fast and the Furious, you know, like, or we're coming together here. It's sort of fascinating how this is such a domino effect of a moment here in this the new boxing scene that we're seeing.
It's a level of one-upsmanship from both guys, right? Like, and the way I look at it is KSI at his events, he's trying to one-up Jake's events. Like, KSI's entire event was immaculate, ridiculous.
Untouchable. Yeah.
And you watch a Jake Paul event and you're really watching for Jake. right? You're watching for that main event, like a most boxing events would be.
Mate, let's not forget some of those. I mean, that Ben Askren event where they had all those dancers and singers.
It was awful.
Fucking hell, it was bad.
It was terrible.
Nothing, and that's where, like, you know, Misfits have nailed it. And I'm not just saying this because we were a part of the show. Like, I couldn't give a shit, really.
Like, if you have two eyes and you can see, though, that's the easiest thing to see.
It was hands down the best YouTube boxing event that we've ever seen in terms of the all-round package. So that's always going to be there.
JJ having that level of upsmanship, if he can then level up the competition, which I think he's going to do with Slim, with, you know, if it's Tommy Fury, if he's able to match the levels in competition and go boom, 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 while keeping that event as good as it is, it makes his drawing power and the Jake fight even more realistic, because then Jake sees, fuck, these guys are putting on ridiculous events, and he's starting to get to that level. Then we can make that fight. But one little pebble in this road, and that's the hard part about this fight. We talked about it in studio. Jake trips up, you know, against Anderson, and that's not a pebble, it's a fucking boulder. Or if KSI has a struggle with one of the other guys he fights, and this fight, again, it just separates again. So we have to have everything almost go perfect here.